to the second day of our RTCWEB interim. So thanks for everybody who got up early this morning and came to join us either on the video conference or here in person. This is the Note Well. If you have not seen it before, please review it and the documents it references. For everybody else, just remind yourself how wonderful it is. We live in a world where the Note Well is available to us. Just a second and I'll put up the agenda. Okay, so here's the agenda for today. As we noted yesterday, there's a bit of agenda bashing. So the first item on our agenda today is going through the ISG discuss resolution required to get the use cases and requirements document through. There were a number of ISG comments and discusses that we need to review. And so Krista will be going through that. Then Randall will be presenting remotely on data channel. Then Magnus, who was cruelly shoved off the agenda yesterday for talking about audio codecs for interoperability, will return. And any remaining time down there at the very bottom will be for GitHub issue resolution if we have time for that. Anybody have any heartburn with this ordering of topics? Okay, at some point probably after data channel we'll take a coffee break, but if necessary even in the middle of that. Okay, Kristen, you want to come up?
Okay, so while he's putting slides there, we got a lot of reviews or comments during the GenArt review and also from the other reviews. In the ISG review, we got a lot of comments. We got some discusses. Those are the ones I'm going to focus on here. Some we have already resolved. I'm not going to go through those here. There's been a lot of editorial changes in the draft. So once we get everything done, we are going to circulate it on the working group list also to make sure everyone is happy with everything. But what I'm going to focus on here is the discussions that are remaining that we haven't solved yet, and some suggestions on how we can solve them. So if you can go to the first slide, please. This is something that we got from Benoit. It's basically just telling us to address the ops direct reviews that we got from Tina. She sent an email. I haven't addressed those yet. I'm working on it. It should be mostly editorial, so it's not a big issue. So once we get those done, this discussion should also be closed. Huh? Sorry? Well, you know, I'm just copy pasting the you know, it's. Oh, sorry.
And seriously, like this is bullshit. We should write back. This file is discuss criteria. Go pound sand.
Yeah. So never any harm in being polite. No, I'm seriously.
I mean, I don't
people
think
need a little bit of gentle guidance about how the discuss criteria work sometimes. Yeah. So that's all.
You know, and I think her comments were mostly editorials and were very good. So you know, it should be rather easy to fix those. The only thing is I haven't had time to do it yet. I'm working on it. So you know, within this and next week, it should be.
The upshot is if this ends up taking time, if it ends up being more effort to fix this than to push back on Benoit, feel free to push back and say, could you please call out the specific interop?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I have done that. I mean, this is rather harmless, her comments. I mean, what we had, for example, from Brian Carpenter, we get a lot of comments in the GenArt review, and I did push back on some of those, but some were also very good, so we need to fix that. Okay, so next one, please. So basically, this is, next slide. So like I said, this is just a suggestion. I will work on this, so they should be okay. Then the next one, please. This is actually came from Yari Arko, and this is actually something that Brian brought up in his GenArt review. basically saying we do talk in the draft about, it should be possible, a browser or an entity should be possible, it should be able to be connected to an IPv4 network, an IPv6 network, and so on. But the question he had was that it's a little unclear whether IP version interoperability, things like that, are within the scope of the document. I said, no, it's not really that. If you have IPv1 on S4 on one side and 6 on the other side, we don't really describe how you're going to interact between that. You can have entities in a network and so on. So basically, this is what he said. This is actually what Yari said. So basically, what I have is some suggested text on the next slide here. This was actually suggested by Yari, also the text. Can you go down a little so we see the whole slide? So there's the old text. They're saying which clients can be on networks with a NAT using any type of mapping and filtering behavior. And basically what he suggested is that we're saying clients can be on networks with NAT or IPv4v6 translation devices using any type of mapping and network behavior. Basically, that's all we would say. We wouldn't go into details on how to do IP version interworking and those kind of things. Obviously, we do say in the draft that you can be both IPv4 and v6, and then you have things like ICE and so on. But
He said he was happy with that text.
Yeah. Oh, you need a mic? There's some more mics.
So are we saying that v4, v6 interop is not part of the use cases requirements?
V4 to V6, I guess. If you couldn't find like an ICE candidate or something that could work, like I guess you could say turn is, right? I don't know.
I mean, if we have one device that does only v4 and the other one does only v6, we are not going to describe how they are going to interwork.
I mean, there's a solution for that, so I don't understand why we would say that's out of scope. I mean, I guess the word translation, I'm not sure if that's a Weasley word here or that's, actually being specific about something. I mean, I think we should work regardless of what the NAT behaviors are or v4 or v6 devices or networks that each endpoint has.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, translation in this case, I think, is actually refers to what the output of behave for v4, v6 type of mailboxes. So it's, I don't think we really need to discuss it. I mean, we have a solutions for turn. I mean, and we also have for dealing with v4, v6, I think, on the requirements for the ICE that you support this and that you can request from turn server v6 even if you only v4 and things like that. So we have endpoints requirements that actually goes beyond this, that we're actually doing something about it also.
Okay. Like I said, once we get a new version of the draft, we're going to circulate it on that list. So next one, please.
We're just going to say that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, Stephen Farrell had a lot of discussions and a lot of comments. The good news is that there's a very simple way for us to move those discussions into comments. Basically, what he said that he's willing to convert or change the status of his discussed comments into comments if we would add some text to the draft to say that this working group is not intending to use the requirements in this document as a hard and fast rules that implement or other specs will be held to in the future. Basically, more saying, this is something we did in order to help our work. We also had some comments, for example, from Pete. It was only comments, but he basically doesn't want to publish this document at all. And I know that Colin had some discussions with him, basically saying similar things. So basically, the suggestion here would be that we would, add some text in the beginning of the documents, describe why we did this, and so on. But not really hold future specification and future work hostage from this document. I don't know. We need to come up with some good text, but it shouldn't be a problem. Colin?
Okay, so Colin Jennings with my chair hat on here for a second. I think that it's very for us to say This has been discussed in the working group when we started this work on. That is very much the intention. That is why this document was brought forward as informational, not BCP.
Yeah.
As an informational document, it has no process to hold all of these things down. We're glad to say that this was work used to help us, understand what's going on, get the work done, and also we can compare our solutions against it. But our solutions are not required to meet it,
Yeah.
right? And there's parts of it we don't even really know what it would mean to meet them, and that's the way it is. So we can say that. And I want to defend Pete here for a second, slightly, okay? Which sounds odd. People are going to be like, Colin's defending Pete. He put the way he marked this as an abstain. He didn't really, like, when you really think about what this happens from an ISG process point of view, he's effectively voted yes for all intents and purposes on this document. He's just called it ugly. And, we should just be fine with that and thank Pete and carry on with life, right? We don't have to worry about that one too much.
Yeah,
and he is not blocking the document, is what I'm trying to say.
And that's good. And I don't really intend to go into any discussions with him. I think you had some discussions with him, and I think those were very good. So.
And they're very sidelined. They don't matter. And I was just trying to help Pete understand that. What's that? I'm saying abstains don't matter. Discusses matter. So he's not blocking our document was the only point I wanted to make.
Stefan Wenger, if these are not requirements, we shouldn't call the doc use cases and requirement. We should call it use cases and implementation suggestions, constraints, something. But if they are not requirements, they shouldn't be called requirements.
Suggestion for name?
I'm not an English native speaker. I leave that to English native speakers. My vocabulary is not large enough for that.
I assure you my English is worse than yours.
Anyway, so I mean, we'll discuss offline and on the list, the exact wording. But I mean, does anyone object to this principle of doing this? I mean, so. Okay. So basically, what I have on the next slides are his discusses, which now will be comments. I mean, I guess it's up to the chairs here to decide whether we want to look at those or whether we want to work with something else.
I got a quick question before we go on to those.
Okay.
Would anyone object if we moved the title of this document to be design characteristics instead of requirements?
That's a good question.
My only concern is, this is Sean Turner. My only concern here is that we're then going to get, well, we changed the, it's not truth in advertising because the title doesn't match what's the content of the document. So you fix one discuss and then you get nailed by somebody else. So if we just change it completely to something different, and if we all know what it means in this working group, that's what really matters.
Yeah, I mean, there's one, for example, there was one of that was not a discuss, it was a comment. Someone asked, for example, why the browser requirements, no, not the browser requirements, the API requirements, why have we put those into an annex, for example, if they're not requirements? I mean, if they are requirements, why do we put them in annex? Questions like that. So I mean, it's we need to, yeah.
So I also note that this document is shared with the W3C, and I'm not sure what their process is for dealing with a document that has, desiderata and indicia for, foo instead of requirements. So I think that changing the name at this point may be more work than less work. It seems like a fast way to resolution, and I suspect it is not. This is Ted Hardy speaking.
Yeah, I think if we can get some good text into the beginning of the document and see whether people are happy with that, it's
Look, I can't believe I'm even bothering to speak about this. Like, we could just keep the title the same and add like a disclaimer at the front and call it a day.
Alyssa has proposed text. The current text that she has goes from old. This document was developed in an initial phase of the work with rather minor updates at later stages. It has not really served as a tool in deciding features or scope for the working group's efforts so far. It is proposed to be used in a later phase to evaluate the protocols and solutions developed by the working group. That's the old text. She's proposing this document was developed in an initial phase of the work with rather minor updates at later stages. It has not really served as a tool in deciding features or scope for the working group efforts so far. It is to record the early conclusion working group. It will not be used as a set of rigid guidelines that specifications and implementations will be held to in the future. I will post, that's in the Jabber room. If people want, I can put it on a slide quickly. but just from a quick hearing, have heartburn.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, seeing no objections to that, that'll go to the mailing list, obviously, along with all the rest of them. But that seems like our current theory.
Okay, so this is actually, so this was one of the discussions which is going to be a common comment, but I think this is one of the comments that we do need to address somehow. Just to be clear, I mean, the blue text which you see on the slide here is the text that the current text in the draft. And the text in black is actually the comment that we got. Just to make that clear. So the comment basically was on requirement F13. Authenticates in ambiguous there. There appears to be an understated need for IDP here, and it's really the IDP that are authenticating one another and the endpoints. Did the working group discuss any form of endpoint authentication that's based on e.g. SSH? I knew you were going to get up. So, okay, so you have read it. Okay.
Yes, and this is precisely why, like, I think why I'm wondering if we should continue this document. So, I mean, this material is covered in the security document. I'd be happy to, like, I don't know, I can supply some text that goes somewhere that attempts to clear this point up, but I have no idea what.
Well, I mean, the security document is basically going to be, you know, the child of this document, right? So it's.
I mean, if people tell you what structurally they want, I'm happy to supply text.
I mean, the way things have happened in the past, right? You put a requirements document through and they go, how are you going to do that? It's like we could put it all in this document or point to the documents that are going to solve that. If we put a reference in there, it ought to be good to go, I would think. Right? Because we're going to get damned if we do and damned if we don't. If you put a protocol document first, they're going to go, where are the requirements? Put a requirements document first, they go, where's the protocol? Right? So it's kind of, you know, catch-22. Which one do you want, guys? And you also don't want us to give all 14 of them at once. So
I mean, to be clear, with respect to this exact requirement, like, absolutely we consider this, and absolutely you can do this with existing technology. So it's just a matter of, like, writing of text.
So I actually think I contributed that text that's in there, and looking at it, I'm thinking, that really belonged in the security document, not in this thing. And then, you know, then the ISG, oh, you must do this or do that, but it's really the security document. You know, I don't know what you should say, because if you didn't say this, and they say, oh, you didn't make them do this.
I mean, we can remove the whole requirement if we want.
I mean, it may be all
to make the ISG happy, you should do, but recognize it doesn't matter, because it's already in the security document.
Maybe a reference, and it may be that all he's looking for here is an answer to his question. Did you consider this? And the answer is yes. The considerations went on and on and on, and it's possible. And it's in the security document, and we don't have to change anything. We just have to answer the question.
Yeah, I think related to this, and which is probably going to make it maybe more clear for him. We got some comments also that there wasn't really enough text in the security considerations. So what we are going to put text in the security considerations, we are actually going to refer to the security document there and say, you know, the security aspects, et cetera, are discussed in this document. So there's going to be a pointer to that document.
No, it is not. No, we're not going to make a normative dependency to it. It's not. Right.
Okay.
I guess I'm first, and then I'll let you go. If this goes out and gets into the security document, I always view this, when I read Ecker's document first, and one of the things was that it allowed for all modes of all encryption modes that are supported by DTLS SRTP, including null cipher. Here, that language seems to imply that null cipher is not possible because it says must encrypt. If this is removed or points to the security document, the security document in my reading doesn't have this stronger language. It allows all DTLS modes to be negotiated if the browser supports that.
Okay, I don't want to take a position about what things actually say, because there's a document. It's not my intention to allow null ciphers.
Well, no, that's something that very early on, when we had the secure RTP debate, and people talked about when plain RTP was applicable, one of the arguments that finally ended that debate was, well, DTLS allows you to allows you to negotiate in null cipher mode. So, and I've read the security document and it stays silent on this. So I'm assuming that if an implementer wants this wants to support this, that it's up to them. They have to support DTLS SRTP. That's a given, right?
So after your comment, Harold, I want to return to that point because I think it's something we need to resolve fairly quickly.
Harold John, the reply to discuss is yes, we discussed this. The change to the document needed is that it is, in my opinion, that the working group, the requirement should be extended to say the working group will define more precisely what authenticate means in this context. We cannot have forward pointers from use cases and requirements because what is pointed to is not there yet. But we can have use cases and requirements saying that before we're finished, we have to understand this. So make a statement saying that yes, this will be clarified. This is clarification is a requirement, and I think you should be able to do SSH leap of faith.
Oh, okay, so does anybody have an objection to the way forward that Harold's just outlined? Obviously, that we need text for it, but
yeah, I doubt it's needed to clear this discuss. I think all we need to do to clear the discuss, I do not think necessarily requires changing the document at all.
We already cleared the discuss. Now it's a comment.
Okay, but the basic point is that what we're going to say to let's go back. What we're going to say is yes, we discussed this, and yes, the intent is to allow SSH leap of faith. Further discussion will happen in the security documents, and the working group will work it out there, right? That's what's going back to the AD on this. Is that's a problem?
No, that sounds fine. I thought
okay,
that was
so
what Harold proposed. So.
No, I think that's what I understood Harold to be proposing. Yes. Okay, so I think given that clarification, is there anybody who objects to that way forward? Okay, seeing none. I wish to go back to the point that was just raised about whether or not we have null ciphers permitted or not. Because I don't believe, my understanding as a participant or as chair was that was the intent of the language in the document. I do not believe that we are currently planning to support null ciphers as a working group. If I have misunderstood that, I think we need clarification in the working group and potentially in the document. So I'd like to have a short discussion of that, but first, do we want to have that now, or do we want to have a separate topic? Okay. I had one person say separate topic. Okay, so I propose that we discuss this tomorrow so that we can have a little coffee clutch time over it, but that we make it one of the topics for tomorrow morning. Is everybody okay with that agenda bash for tomorrow? Okay, great. If you need to prepare something, here, let me hand you that.
Gary Mundy, I'm Qualcomm Innovation Center. Sorry, I didn't identify myself. Should I prepare something? I can identify the exact use case that's in my mind on this.
Sure, that would be helpful. I think there's been a lot of discussion in the ITF recently on the need to move forward with confidentiality as a baseline expectation, and so I think it would be very challenging for us at this point to say null encryption in applications of this which are crossing the wide area network. So if you can specify a use case tomorrow morning, that would be very useful. In the meantime, that discussion will happen tomorrow morning. I'll send something to the list quickly so that people know that there's been a fairly, I mean, this topic wasn't even on the interim discussion. So I'll send something to the list as well. Great, let's return to our discuss clearing exercise.
Yeah, I guess before we go to the next slide, so is anyone gonna, based on what we just discussed before this, is someone gonna provide some good text on this one? There were some suggestions on text that we can put here.
Sorry, I believe the suggestion that Harold put forward was that We reply to him that yes, the working group did consider it, and yes, the working group believes SSH leap of faith-like setup will be supported. It will be discussed further in the security documents.
Okay. Yeah, good, excellent. So next one, please. I think from my perspective, this was the most tricky one. So, but we can go quickly through the other ones and see if there's something. Yeah. So this was just move on. Next one, please. Yeah, this one. Yeah. Yeah, I think this one is good also. Basically, what F20 says is that the browser must support the use of stun and turn servers that are supplied by entities other than the web application. So basically, the question now here is that is there not a missing requirement and are not be able to easily consume the bandwidth of someone else's turn server just because you once made a call via that, basically, saving whatever address you got previously, and then you start, bombarding it later, to its bandwidth. I mean, I don't see how you could prevent that. I mean, once you get an IP address, you can send whatever stuff you want there, but no?
The problem is once we go down this road, you could have a requirement for every aspect of RTCWEB and every protocol, right, and create this and say, why isn't that in here and this in here? But at some point, I think you just have to say, and remember, that work wouldn't even be in this working group, right? In a lot of cases, it would be in some other working group. So I think at some point
I don't think this is RTCWEB specific, right? I mean, this is if someone wants to work on this, it should be done, whoever, the turn working group.
Comments aren't. Yeah. So, I don't know what to say. It's a high level bunch of requirements. It doesn't deal with everything of every aspect of REI. Yeah.
This is Roman speaking. There are authentication credentials for the turn server. So if you have the credentials to use it, there is a username. That means that you have a right to use it.
Yeah.
So that should be it. It's like you are a person who's been authorized by somebody to use it.
Yeah, as long as you have the credentials, you're okay to use it. Once you don't have them, it's.
Yeah, I think the right response here is to say, if you've been authorized to use a turn server, you are authorized to use it.
Yeah.
And so there is an authorization model here that controls for this sort of risk.
It actually specifically does not allow you to do allocations if you do not have the credentials.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, I think the thing he might be worried about, let me just play devil's advocate here for a second, is that the authorization may be more context specific than just having the credentials. So it may be that if I'm on, so the requirement in question here relates to turn servers discovered, say, in an ISP network. So it might be that, the ISP wants me to use the turn server while I'm on their network.
Yeah, that's the responsibility of whoever issued the credentials to basically manage them so they're used for the purposes they intended for.
I think that's fine.
So he has a point to the extent that the creds are set in the clear, right, in the JavaScript. But that's what Justin's draft is about, and you don't have to say you're going to do everything in the world, right? I mean,
yeah. No. Yeah. Next one, please. I think the response. Yeah.
This is Sean Turner. I was going to put in the Jabber room this. If you've been authorized, you've been authorized.
Yeah. It's like, whatever.
Right. I just added one more sentence in the minute. So, right. If you've been authorized to use a turn server, then you are authorized to use it. The credentials are the way in which authorization is to be managed by the server owner.
Yeah. Good. Scroll down, please.
One more comment. And just because I don't type into Jabber that fast, that credential recall is a problem for the credential issuer, not for this working group.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. This is not RTCWEB specific. Whoever uses turn. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think this one is something we also should have a few words about. The text says that F36 says the browser must be able to generate stream using the entire user display, a specific area of the user displays, or in the information being displayed by a specific application. So basically the question here is, it's not It's not clear to me that this can never be done safely, since JavaScript code with the privilege can take screenshots every
Yeah, so I pushed back on Stephen on the telechat for a few minutes, and it was clear that there was not sufficient time on the telechat to develop his understanding to the point where he was comfortable clearing. So I think having some offline discussion with him to understand, maybe provide him a pointer to the relevant 50 pages of text to say that these are risks that have been considered and are handled in the security context. Is there a context in which this can be done safely?
No. Is there a context in which you can get 20 signatures? There is another way to deal with this, and this is to basically not be so precise about what the browser is able to do, because this implies an absolute requirement to do the things that we know are not safe. So
yes, since they're not absolute requirements, and since this is like not even, and since this functionality is not in the ITS specification, I just remove this line item, and then we'll have to discuss it with Stephen.
that's an excellent way forward. I think we just strike 36. Yep.
Remove the requirement?
Yep.
Okay. Anyone have a problem with that? Harald?
It's a problem that it increases the distance between what we are specifying and what will actually happen in practice. And browsers will provide support for screencasting.
Of course, we're not required to.
Yep.
By the non-requirements.
Yep.
We're not a design point to. So, okay, so look, I think what we should say here is let's just empower our document shepherd, Sean, here, okay? If that seems to be the right thing to do to remove this as the easiest way to discuss it, everyone here is fine with it. If you just think you can clear it, no problem without removing it, we don't care, right? So is that clear enough? Is everyone fine with that guidance to moving this forward?
Well, I mean, I don't have the document in front of me, but is there actually some use case which is so dependent on this that if we remove this requirement, the whole use case is going to fall? Who cares?
Dan Burnett. Yeah, so, even though I made the comment that it's not a real requirement, and that sort of started us down the road of, well, we can just take it out because nothing's a real requirement. That argument can be used to say we should just remove the entire document altogether. And so I don't think. All right, so yeah, so we need to be a little careful because if the answer to each question is let's just remove it, then that's going to fail at some point, right? Now, maybe in this particular case, there is no easy way to fix the wording to make it be less requirement-y.
I think the guts of this is that in order to express this requirement in a way that would only contain the safe stuff would require Ecker's 50 pages of text. And the protocol can do things that are not required in the requirements document. So removing this doesn't have that much impact. It just removes the temptation to add unsafe stuff to meet the requirement.
I mean, one thing we could do, we also have a section in the document which is called, browser considerations, where we list things which we expect the browser to be able to do. I mean, maybe this is something that we could add there. The browser expected to be able to, provide, media from different parts or something like that. That wouldn't be a requirement. It's more like, this is something we expect from the browser. I don't remember the section number. It's for. Oh yeah, true.
Okay, I want to go back to first principles here. We have actual work to do, and this document does not advance in any way protocol specification or implementation. And so every minute we waste, like negotiating exactly what garbage we put in this document, so the ISG will accept it, is a minute we're not doing actual work. So I want to either clear these or just defer this entire discussion to some future point. Right? And like this is just a waste of time.
So the easiest way to do that is to empower the document author to clear these working with the area director and the chairs. I generally don't advise that because any last minute changes to a document done that way don't get passed by the working group. So if we do this as a document spin and share it with the working group, that is, there's a new version of the document, not a set of RFC editor notes, and then have the working group take a quick look at it that way. Is everybody going to be okay with skipping the rest of today's discussion? Okay. Krister, is there anything else after Stevens discusses that you feel the working group really should see today?
No, I mean, the Stevens stuff is the last thing I had in this, and I think most of the stuff is, there are things, but it's just editorial. You know, we'll try to come up with
certainly
something.
for editorial stuff, it should be at the discretion of folks. Did you have something you want to say, Bernard?
Just a comment for Harold. This is the kind of torture you should be expecting from the overview document. And I don't know if there's a way to get around that, but I can imagine us spending like 3 hours about them nitpicking every aspect of that too.
Harold's mic has died while he's trying to say been there.
So just going back to that bit at the beginning of the document, right? So I hadn't really read this document in a long time until it came up on ISG eval. And you read that thing at the beginning that says, this is kind of what we thought a long time ago, but it's still a requirements document. So you can really head off, I think, a lot of these things by just being very specific, even if it's a document that you worked on a long time ago and it's crappy, right? Say in the document, we worked on this a long time ago and it's crappy, and this is how we're going to use it going forward. And I think that can get you out of a lot of these issues.
Or make it a good document as our actual responsible area director advises us in that particular direction. So again, for those of you who worked on this document, I think it actually was very useful to focus discussion during the course of some parts of the, yeah, I mean, it's the reason you write them. You get focused discussion as a result of them. I do think we got focused discussion as a result of it. Publishing it post facto is a little bit like publishing the drafts of a poem. You really want to look at the protocol documents for the results of the requirement document, and so I appreciate the work that was done, and I don't wish to say anything like this is a crappy document. It was very useful in the working groups thing.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily disagree if someone said that myself. So
should we ask for publication in historic status?
I don't think that really changes anything about what we need to do with the document. So I think informational is fine. But I think we know what we're going to do with this document now. The document author will work with the ADs and chairs. We'll respin rather than RFC editor notes. The working group will have a quick chance to look at it and make sure there's no heartburn in the respin. Again, because this is also a document that the W3C used during its process, we want to be a little bit careful about it. Since the W3C chairs are in this room and not hopping up and down, I think they're probably okay with this. But just want to be a little bit careful. Okay, so thanks very much. And Dom is also not hopping up and down. Okay, so we'll change topics as soon as I can get back to the right bit of the screen. So Randall, my effort to force you onto the main screen having failed, and my IM also apparently not reaching you, it's time for you to uncloak and start going through the channels.
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. So, okay, I'm Randall Jessup. I'm hoping that is the most controversial thing we'll be covering in this topic. Next slide. So the current documents have been revised by Michael Tuxen and myself and others. But thanks to Michael for doing a lot of the editing nits on this. They're the current versions. Most of the changes since London have either been just simply recording the output of the decisions at London, which were mostly to leave things the same, and editing nits, a word change here and so forth. So I'm hoping we're ready to go to the last call on all this and get everything done. Next slide. Okay, so the recent changes to the document have been, we added a security section per some discussion with Magnus on the lists. You can see all the discussion there. It's not exciting, it's not controversial. It basically says, yes, a string with a 16-bit length can have a length of 64K. You should be ready for this. And that doesn't say much more than that. The one item that was on the slides for London that we did not discuss in London, we skipped it for time reasons because it was relatively uncontroversial, was the priority field, which was originally set up as signed, and we have changed that to unsigned. So that is the one item really resolved. There were some wording changes to resolve some of the comments on the lists to make it more, make it clear that the DTLS role being used to choose even and odd only applies if you're using DTLS. This was implied strongly before, but it is now quite explicit. And one of the changes that was made at London was we switched to the WebSocket protocol registry for the registry portion. So that's a delta versus an older, that was a delta in 04, in the 04 rev of this document, not in the 05. Any questions on this? If there is no line of people waiting to discuss these exciting items, I will say let's go on to the next slide.
This is Magnus Westlund. I mean, the priority, I know I didn't manage to check properly what's in the draft, but what do you reference for the definition of priority?
What do I reference for the definition? Let's see, the draft itself has not changed in terms of the priority. Let me just pull it up here so I can see what it's saying. Here it is. Okay, so it says priority 2 bytes integer, and now it says priority 2 bytes unsigned integer. The priority of the channel as described in the data channel draft. This is the protocol draft. The higher the number, the lower the priority.
Okay. Which means it's actually then the data channel priority specification, which is still missing then.
The data channel is, the next slide will be covering the data channel spec.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. This is effectively the protocol establishment spec. If that's the only comment, let's move on to the next slide and discuss that document. Okay, and if you look at the diffs in the IETF diff tool.
Sorry,
yes.
I missed my cue.
Sorry, moving too fast.
What action do you specify as a result of setting a priority?
Well, that would be covered entirely within the data channel draft itself. I'm trying to remember exactly how it is, but effectively this is an input into the SCTP choice of which packets on the different channels, the different SCTP streams get onto the wire first.
Yes, exactly. That was what I was wondering. So is this a TSV WG topic?
Effectively, yes.
Okay, but we have to say which strategy we say that you should choose for it, right?
I believe, I don't remember that Tuxen handled that in detail. I think there should be something in the data channel draft basically saying this is handled by the SCTP TSV stuff, but I don't believe there's been any controversy over that beyond that. I'll have to take a look at the data channel draft, but I don't think we did any extensive discussion of that in that draft. I'll take a look.
Last time I asked, you said, we have to specify a scheduler, but we haven't defined a scheduler that fits with what the IETF meeting some time back had decided we wanted. So I was wondering if you, so I was just checking if you have closed that loop. It seems that we are still missing it. This is Harald Alvestrand, by the way, for those who
yes
can't see me.
If someone wants to, go ahead.
This is Magnus Westland. I mean, I'm looking at the data channel draft, and the only two mentions of priorities, one in the requirement and one in the channel definition, and there's no definition or reference or anything towards what it actually results in. So that's still an open issue.
Okay.
Okay, open issue noted.
Okay, one open issue, and I'll coordinate with Michael Tuxen on what's the best way to throw some text in there, and we'll do that and put it up on the list. Okay, so that leads into the discussion of the data channel draft itself. Yeah.
Ted Hardy speaking. Chair hat on for a second. Is there anybody who has text they want to bring forward to the working group or to the authors now? Because this is obviously an issue that, as an open issue, could delay us getting this to working group last call. And our real aim here is to get this to working group last call if we can. Is there anybody who has strong advice they want to give the authors at this point, or discussion with the working group on the priority topic?
I'm more than happy to, if no one else has any advice, I'm more than happy to try to craft a bit of text to throw in there and that we could discuss later within this meeting or tomorrow.
That would be great if we could do it either today or tomorrow, so that we could actually get language in front of people and make sure that we've got some agreement on it. That would be wonderful, because we really do want to take this to working group last call at the end of this interim if we can.
I will get you some language.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for noticing that. So I'll try once more. Are we ready for the next slide? Okay. So barring the issue we just discussed, there have been very few changes other than editing nits to this document since -08. The only one, and it's really an editing nit, but it was actually discussed on the list, so I'm mentioning it, was when discussing how to reference media streams. Originally, they was just we said media streams. In -08, we changed it to SRT, paren SRTP, and then in -09 we changed it to SRTP after discussion on the list. There were changes in -08 before London. Those were all pretty much discussed at London, and the text matches what was agreed to at London. I went and reviewed all the notes from the London meeting as well. And this is just, what I'm mentioning here is just what was, what was done in -08 and agreed to at London.
Do you have any questions on this slide or issues to raise about these?
Yeah, we have the one issue where I need to get some text around priority.
Okay, there's nobody in the room coming up to the microphone, Randall. You want to move on?
Okay, next slide. Okay, and it's just a summary slide. I went and reviewed every list email on the list going back to before London, and I could find no other issues that had not been dealt with. And we've now identified one issue to be resolved that should not be problematic to resolve during this meeting. Assuming we can come up with texts that are good, that will resolve that issue to everyone's satisfaction, I think we're ready for last call on these documents.
So any new issues from the room at this point? How about remote participants? Any issues you want to raise? Okay, I think what we'll do at this point is Randall will probably go off into coffee break now. Do you want to craft text while we coffee break, or do you want to propose that for tomorrow morning?
I'll try to craft text while we coffee break. I might need to coordinate with Michael Tuxen. If so, then we might need to do it tomorrow morning, but it should be simple.
Okay, so why don't we take a half-hour coffee break at this point, and Randall, take a look at what you can craft during that half hour. If you can't, we'll put you on the agenda for tomorrow morning and get you up again early.
Okay. It's not early. I'm on the East Coast.
Oh, I forgot. Sorry. Okay, for remote participants, we'll reconvene at the top of the hour.
Oh, and there is actually, I think, one more slide if you want to look at it. It's not exciting either.
Yeah, I'm not going to sing. These people would hit me. But thanks very much.
Okay. Enjoy your coffee.
All right. We'll come back at the top of the hour, everyone.